Here's something that will recalibrate everything you think you know about financial stability. The rules I'm about to give you don't ask you to earn more, budget harder, or white knuckle your way through the end of the month. They ask you to stop paying for things twice, because right now, you almost certainly are on most of what you own. And the second bill is consistently larger than the first. These aren't generic money principles. These are the 4 operating frameworks I've watched separate people who permanently have money from people who permanently don't. Across every income bracket I've seen in 10 plus years of running my own business, surrounded by accountants, fiscal lawyers, and people whose literal job was tracking where dollars disappear to. 2 apartments, same city, same neighborhood, similar rent. Person 1 earns $95,000 a year. Walk inside. 75-inch television, $4,000 sectional, a kitchen stuffed with appliances still in their original packaging, closets full of clothes nobody wears, and a spare bedroom that functions exclusively as expensive storage. This person checks their bank account with a knot in their stomach. 2 missed paychecks from genuine crisis. Person 2 earns $52,000. Walk inside. A modest couch, a reasonable television, a kitchen containing exactly the tools that get used regularly, clothes that actually get worn. This person checks their bank account with calm. 18 months of living expenses saved. 20% of every paycheck invested without fail. Same neighborhood. The person earning nearly half as much has roughly 10 times the financial security. This is not a story about income. It's a story about a mechanism most people never see, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here's the frame I want you to hold on to for the entire video. Call it the phantom bill. Every single thing you own is quietly mailing you a monthly bill that never shows up in your bank statement. You paid the purchase price. You got the receipt. You thought the transaction was done. But the phantom bill keeps arriving. Storage, maintenance, insurance, mental load, opportunity cost. The sticker price is the entry fee. The phantom bill is the subscription you signed up for without reading the terms. And the entire game of financial stability, the entire game is learning which phantom bills are actually worth paying and which ones are silently draining the wealth you haven't built yet. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you the rule that generates the most actual money of all 4 I'm covering today. It involves measuring wealth in a completely different unit than dollars. But first, here's why the lifestyle trap is even more broken than it looks from the outside. Let's talk about the hidden second price tag on everything you own. There was a study conducted in the 90s by consumer behavior researchers tracking the actual usage of impulse purchases versus deliberate purchases. The finding was brutal. Impulse purchases got used roughly 1/7 as often as deliberate ones. 1/7. But they cost the same at point of purchase. The receipt was identical. The phantom bill was completely different. The deliberate buyer paid $10 per use. The impulse buyer paid $70 per use and then continued paying storage and maintenance on top of that for years afterward. The phantom bill doesn't care about your intentions. It charges you for what actually happens. Here's how to calculate it honestly. Take the purchase price, add estimated annual maintenance, add storage costs roughly $30 to $50 per square foot per year in most American metro areas. Add insurance where applicable. Multiply by the years you'll realistically own it. Then divide by the number of times you'll actually use it, not the number of times you plan to use it. The number you'd bet money on. A treadmill occupies about 20 square feet with proper clearance. At $40 per square foot annually, that's $800 a year in implicit rent. Add a $1,000 purchase price spread over 5 years, $200 annually. Add maintenance, call it $100 a year. You're at $1,100 per year to own the treadmill. If you use it twice a week, you're at roughly $10.50 per use. Reasonable. But the fitness industry's own data shows that most home exercise equipment gets used for approximately 3 months before it transitions to a very expensive clothes hanger. At twice a month, which is already generous, you're at $46 per use, and you're still paying the storage phantom bill, whether you use it or not. Most people have never run this math, and that's exactly why the treadmill keeps sitting there. The deeper principle, the phantom bill scales with neglect. The less you use something, the more expensive each use becomes. The more expensive each use becomes, the more psychologically uncomfortable it is to use it, because every use is a reminder of the money wasted. So you use it less, which makes each use more expensive. It's a self-reinforcing spiral that ends with a decade-old treadmill in a garage nobody enters. The minimalist rule here is intentionally blunt. If you wouldn't pay the full phantom bill in cash today, knowing what you know about your actual usage, you probably shouldn't own it. Now here's where the first rule connects to the second, and this is the part that surprises people. Every major possession has gravitational pull. It doesn't sit alone in your life. It attracts a constellation of other purchases that feel like necessities, but are actually just the multiplier effect of the original decision. This is rule 2. The lifestyle multiplier is not a budgeting problem. It's a physics problem. A boat needs a trailer. The trailer needs a hitch-equipped truck. The truck is larger and costs more to insure, register, and fuel. The boat needs storage. Covered marina storage in most coastal states runs between $1,500 and $3,000 annually. The boat needs winterization, cleaning supplies, safety equipment, and registration. The industry rule of thumb for annual maintenance on a recreational boat is roughly 10% of the vessel's value. A $30,000 boat costs $3,000 a year in maintenance alone. Add storage, add insurance, add fuel for actual outings. You're looking at $6,000 to $8,000 annually to own a boat, whether you take it out or not. $6,000 per year, divided by 8 outings, and most recreational boat owners go out fewer than 8 times a year. Multiple surveys confirm this. That's $750 per trip on the water. You could charter a boat for less than that. You could fly to a coastal city and rent one for the weekend. But the boat is sitting in storage, sending you a phantom bill every month with perfect consistency. And here's the reversal nobody talks about. The lifestyle multiplier runs backward too. Eliminate one anchor possession, and you often eliminate an entire ecosystem of related expenses. Sell the boat. The trailer goes with it. The hitch-equipped truck becomes unnecessary. You downsize the truck, which means lower insurance, lower registration, lower fuel costs. The covered storage payment disappears. One decision cascades through an entire category and can claw back $8,000 to $12,000 a year in phantom bills, not through budgeting more aggressively, but through removing the gravitational source. I want to introduce someone now. Call him Brian, because Brian is the $95,000 a year person from the beginning. And what's happening to Brian is not stupidity. It's something more interesting and more common than stupidity. Brian has a good job. He's smart, he works hard, he doesn't gamble, he doesn't have any dramatically expensive habit. He's just been over about 6 years of steady income growth, running the lifestyle multiplier at full speed without ever installing a circuit breaker. Each raise got converted almost automatically into a slightly upgraded version of the same lifestyle. Bigger apartment, nicer car, better television, more tools in the garage he uses twice a year. Brian never questioned any individual purchase because each one seemed reasonable in isolation. He never calculated the combined phantom bill because nobody ever showed him how to do that. Brian isn't unusual. The Federal Reserve's 2024 Survey of Consumer Finances found that the median American household, regardless of income bracket, had less than 3 months of emergency savings. For households in the $60,000 to $100,000 income range, median liquid savings was closer to 6 weeks of expenses. 6 weeks. That is a system running at 100% of capacity with zero buffer. One engine failure and the whole thing seizes. Keep Brian in mind. He's gonna matter again before this video is over. By the way, hit subscribe if you're finding this useful. YouTube's algorithm works against channels like mine. And if you don't subscribe, there's a real chance it never surfaces my videos to you again. 2 seconds genuinely makes a difference. Now here's where it gets really interesting. I mentioned earlier that there's a psychological reason the high earner is broke, and it has nothing to do with discipline. Here's the mechanism. When income rises, the brain recalibrates what normal looks like. Behavioral economists call it the hedonic treadmill. The brain is spectacularly good at reclassifying any new level of comfort as the baseline, the floor, the minimum acceptable standard. So the upgrade feels like a luxury for about 6 weeks. Then it becomes the new normal. Then anything below it starts to feel like deprivation, and now you need the next income increase to maintain the feeling of progress. This is why people earning $300,000 can feel financially stressed. It sounds absurd, and yet the research consistently shows it. A well-known Princeton study placed meaningful emotional well-being gains around $75,000 of annual income. More recent research has pushed that number toward $100,000, adjusting for inflation and regional cost differences. But the principle is identical. Beyond a certain threshold, more income mainly produces a higher baseline of expectation, which demands more income to sustain. You're not getting richer, you're running faster to stay in the same emotional place. The people who escape this trap do one specific thing differently. They define enough before their income makes it irrelevant. They set a number, a specific annual lifestyle cost, and they commit to not exceeding it, regardless of what income does afterward. If income grows, the excess gets invested rather than consumed. This is not a sacrifice. It is a design decision with consequences that compound over decades. Run the math. Someone who defines enough as $65,000 of annual spending and then earns $150,000 has $85,000 per year flowing to investments rather than consumption. At the historical S&P 500 average of roughly 10% annually over 20 years, that investment stream reaches approximately $5.4 million. Now, run the same calculation for someone earning the identical $150,000, but continually redefining enough, upward first at $90,000 in spending, then at $110,000, then $130,000. Say they invest $20,000 annually throughout. Same market, same returns. Over 20 years, approximately $1.1 million. Same income, same market, a $4.3 million difference. That gap is not a math problem, it's a definition problem. They never defined enough, so the lifestyle expanded to consume whatever income was available, which is what lifestyles do when you don't constrain them. I want to say something here that most financial content refuses to say plainly. The people who build serious wealth on ordinary or even good but not extraordinary incomes are not more disciplined than you. They are not smarter. They simply have a less complicated relationship with the concept of enough. They decided what they needed, got it, stopped there, and sent every additional dollar to compound quietly in the background. Here's a story that illustrates this better than any statistic I could cite. A colleague of mine knows a retired machinist from Ohio who spent his entire career earning between $48,000 and $67,000 annually, adjusted over the years. He lived in the same house for 31 years, drove modest cars until they stopped working, took one vacation per year to somewhere within driving distance, contributed to his 401k at the maximum his employer would match, starting at age 27. He defined enough early because he had to. Honestly, the income didn't leave much room, and he never revised it upward when he could have. He retired at 61 with a portfolio just under $900,000, a paid-off house, and zero financial stress. He is not the person anyone at his company would have looked at and thought, there goes someone who's building serious wealth. He dressed unremarkably. He drove a car that was not the newest in the parking lot. His phantom bills were small and deliberate, and compounding did everything else. This is rule 3. And it is the one that operates invisibly until it is the only thing that matters. Engineer your environment so that saving is automatic and spending requires friction, not willpower, friction. Most people do exactly the opposite. Spending is frictionless. One click, saved credit card numbers, retargeted ads following you across every platform, shopping apps installed on the phone that's in your hand 12 times a day, email inboxes full of promotional offers calibrated to your purchase history. And saving is friction. You have to think about it, schedule it, transfer it manually, decide on an amount. It competes with every other demand on your attention throughout the day, which means it loses the majority of the time. The fix is structural, not motivational. Motivation is a depletable resource. Environment is constant. Auto transfer the investment contribution on payday, before you see the money, before it registers as available. Make it happen the same day income lands and send it to an account that is not connected to your debit card. The money should be gone from your accessible account before your brain categorizes it as available to spend. Then increase friction for spending. Delete stored credit card numbers from every e-commerce site. Delete shopping apps. Unsubscribe from every promotional email. Install a browser extension that enforces a 24-hour waiting period before any online checkout can complete. Make impulsive spending require effort. Research published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that a mandatory 24-hour waiting period before non-essential purchases eliminated approximately 68% of those purchases. The desire simply evaporated. The urgency that felt completely real at the moment of impulse manufactured by a countdown timer, by social comparison, by boredom, by seeing something in someone else's cart vanished within hours. 68% of spending impulses are essentially fabricated by context. 68%. Over a lifetime of spending decisions, that 68% is the compounding engine or the compounding drain, your choice. And look, I want to address something directly here. You might be thinking this is about living like a monk, suppressing desire, denying yourself anything enjoyable. It is not. The 24-hour rule does not stop you from buying things you genuinely want. It stops you from buying things that seemed appealing for about 4 minutes. Those are entirely different categories of purchase, and most people have no reliable mechanism to distinguish between them. The waiting period is the mechanism. It's not deprivation, it's discernment. 2 sarcastic lines, and then a story. The financial influencer who made $700,000 selling courses about passive income spent 4 years building his audience and 2 years in therapy after his own anxiety about money didn't go away. His passive income course had a 47-step system. The actual passive income part was 1 step. Buy index funds, stop watching them. Now here's what I need you to understand before we get to the 4th rule, because the 4th one reframes everything above it and is worth waiting for. There's a man I'm going to call Daniel. He's 41, earns $92,000, has a mortgage at $2,100 a month, 2 car payments totaling $900 per month, various subscriptions around $200 monthly, many he doesn't actively use, restaurant and entertainment spending averaging around $800 a month, clothing and miscellaneous around $500, credit card minimums on accumulated lifestyle debt around $400 monthly, total annual spending roughly $59,000 after taxes, essentially consuming his net take-home while making a 4% 401k contribution. Daniel's net worth at 41 is approximately $62,000, most of it in his retirement account, which he can't touch without penalties for over 2 decades. He's not irresponsible by conventional definition. He pays his bills. He contributes to retirement. He's never calculated his phantom bills. Now watch what happens when Daniel applies 2 rules and nothing else. He audits subscriptions, cancels the ones he had forgotten about, recovers about $180 monthly. He sells 1 car, eliminates that payment, uses the other vehicle. He implements the 24-hour rule and watches discretionary spending drop by about 40%, as most impulse purchases simply don't survive the wait. Total freed cash, roughly $800 per month. $800 per month invested consistently over 20 years at 10% annual return. That becomes $612,000. Daniel did not change his income. He changed his phantom bill, and compounding did the rest. $612,000 from 1 audit, from 1 decision to actually calculate what his lifestyle costs, rather than just making minimum payments on it month to month. This is the thing about the lifestyle trap that never gets said loudly enough. You don't escape it through more income. More income fed into an unexamined lifestyle just upgrades the trap. You escape it through clarity. And clarity, once you have it, generates its own momentum. Now the 4th rule, the final one. And this is the one that reframes every other rule in this video simultaneously. Stop measuring wealth by what you accumulate. Measure it by what you can choose. Can you leave a job that is damaging your mental health? Can you say no to a high-paying client who treats you like furniture? Can you take 4 months off if a parent gets seriously ill? Can you absorb a 40% income drop without panic? Can you move cities for a relationship or a better opportunity without it becoming a financial emergency? Can you start a business without guaranteed income to support the transition? These options are wealth, not the theoretical kind, the real functional kind. And they are only available to people who have genuine financial margin, structural margin, not I'll cut back if things get rough margin, but designed in margin that exists whether or not anything goes wrong. Every dollar locked in maintaining an excessive lifestyle is a dollar that cannot buy you an option when you need one. You traded the option for the possession. And when the moment comes, and it always comes, a job loss, a health event, an opportunity with an uncertain timeline, you discover the possession is depreciating in your garage and the option is unavailable. Here's a thought experiment. $50,000 in a car or $50,000 in liquid investments. After 10 years, the car is worth approximately $8,000 to $12,000 depending on make and maintenance. The investments, at a conservative 7% annual return, are worth $98,000. But beyond the math, the investments can become an emergency fund, a career transition runway, a down payment on something you actually choose, or the seed capital for a business. The car gets you to work, and it sends you a phantom bill the entire time it's doing it. People know this math. They've heard versions of it. They still buy the car because the car is tangible and present, and the investments are abstract and future. Behavioral economists call this hyperbolic discounting, the systematic human tendency to overweight immediate concrete things relative to future abstract ones. A dollar available today feels more real than a dollar in 10 years. Even when rationally we know the 10-year dollar is actually worth more with compounding applied to it. The minimalist money rules exist precisely to route around this bias. The 24-hour rule is a hyperbolic discounting hack. The automatic investment contribution is a hyperbolic discounting hack. Defining enough is a hyperbolic discounting hack. They all move the decision away from the moment when the brain is most irrational and toward a structure that operates independently of emotional state. Now, back to Brian. Brian got laid off. It happens. Companies restructure, departments get eliminated, and the $95,000 salary Brian built an entire ecosystem of phantom bills around stopped arriving. He had 6 weeks of liquid savings. His minimum monthly expenses, the floor, the absolute non-negotiable cost of maintaining his current configuration sat around $5,800. In 6 weeks, he had to make desperate decisions. He took a loan against his retirement account. He sold investments at the worst possible moment to cover a gap. He took the first job offered because he had no runway to be selective. He made every reactive, fear-driven financial choice that available margin would have prevented. He'll be rebuilding for years. His neighbor, different industry, different company, same wave of economic disruption, earned $52,000, had been living on roughly $36,000 annually for 4 years, had 18 months of expenses and savings, had a brokerage account he'd been contributing to automatically every month for 6 years. When his own employment situation became uncertain, he had options. He could wait for the right opportunity. He could be selective. He didn't have to take the first offer out of financial desperation. He came out of the disruption more financially stable than he entered it because he was never in a position where panic made decisions for him. Same economic environment, same pressure, different financial architecture, different outcomes. The crisis didn't create those outcomes. The design decisions made in the years of normalcy before the crisis did. That's when it matters. Not when you're in the emergency, but in all the ordinary months before it, when the phantom bills were being quietly accumulated or quietly eliminated. And here's the final close on all of this, because I want the frame to be complete. The people who build genuine wealth on ordinary or good but not extraordinary incomes aren't running a more complicated financial strategy. They're running a simpler one. They stopped paying phantom bills on things they didn't actually value. They defined enough and stopped upgrading past it. They automated the saving so the decision wasn't daily. They measured their wealth in options rather than objects. And then they let boring, consistent, diversified index fund investing do what it's been documented doing for 50 years straight. One more number before the takeaways. The Dalbar Research Group publishes an annual study comparing what the average equity investor actually earns versus what the market returns over the same period. In 2023, the average equity fund investor underperformed the S&P 500 by approximately 1.7 percentage points annually over a 30-year look-back period. Not because they chose bad securities, because they traded, they reacted. They got excited when things went up and frightened when things went down and made decisions based on emotion and proximity rather than structure. The boring investor, the one who automated contributions, bought broad index funds, and looked at the account quarterly at most, consistently beat them. For 30 years, lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. That is not a one-liner. That is 30 years of compounding data versus 30 years of people trying to be clever and paying for it. 3 specific things, not general advice, 3 moves. This week, do the replacement test. Walk through your home and find 10 items you would not spend money to replace if they vanish tomorrow. Be honest. Sell what has value. Donate what someone else could use. Discard the rest. You are not just clearing space. You are stopping the phantom bill on things you never actually wanted. This month, audit every recurring charge hitting your accounts. Pull 3 months of statements. The average American, according to a 2023 CNR research survey, carries approximately $239 monthly in subscription services they've forgotten about or stopped actively using. $239 per month invested consistently over 30 years at 10% annual return is $481,000. $481,000 quietly drafting your account every month for things you don't remember signing up for. This quarter, write your number down. The annual spending level that represents genuine enough for you, real comfort, real quality of life, not a fantasy version of what financial success should look like. Write it on paper. Then calculate the gap between that number and your actual income. That gap is your wealth building engine. If the gap is 0 or negative, closing it is the only financial conversation worth having right now. Brian is still rebuilding. His neighbor is interviewing for the job he actually wants on his own timeline from a position of 0 financial desperation. That difference, the calm on one side, the panic on the other, was not determined by income. It was determined by design. Built quietly in ordinary months through decisions about phantom bills most people never learn to calculate. The second price tag is real. Start reading it.